It shouldn't be too hard initially. We'll see how it goes. Indiana Jones.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody knows him. Hat, whip, hates snakes.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, Sasha too. Okay, George Challenger. We got one. Wow, that's cool. Alan Quartermain. Okay, we got one. Oh, come on. He was played horribly by Sean Connery in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. You cannot
Okay,
forget
yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that one.
Okay, Percy Fawcett. Nobody. Oh, one? Let's see. One. Fantastic. All right. Well, we all know Indiana Jones, and the other two are also fictional characters, Challenger and Quartermain. Fawcett was the real guy who inspired all three of them. And I'm here to explain just quite how that works. Fawcett was a very interesting character. I could waste way more time than this speech talking about him. In World War I, he directed artillery strikes via Ouija board and arrested Winston Churchill on suspicion he was a spy. He was a super pacifist when he wasn't fighting wars and directing artillery strikes. So when he was doing mapping work and the natives would start throwing darts and spears at him, he'd swim across the river and talk them out of it. And he did it on multiple occasions. So this guy, to speak bluntly, he's just a badass. But you're probably wondering, how does this guy affect modern fiction? Because he is basically Indiana Jones. Well, he was friends with two people, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and H. Rider Haggard. Doyle, after he killed off Sherlock Holmes in the Reichenbach Falls, decided he needed a new series. So he wrote The Lost World, where head professor George Challenger, where he goes off into the jungle and discovers dinosaurs and basically commits genocide on cavemen, very white guy stuff. But he based the main character off of his friend, Percy Fawcett. Now, Fawcett was also friends with H. Rider Haggard, who wrote King Solomon's Mines, which is considered the original adventure story. That has Alan Quartermain going off into the deep, dark heart of Africa, finding a bunch of diamonds and getting rich, which is also standard white guy stuff. This was considered the original adventure story, and the main character was based off of Fawcett. In fact, H. Rider Haggard was in Africa for a little while, and he gave Fawcett this idol he found, and it sat on his nightstand, basically. So these guys were close friends. There was a social circle there. They all knew each other, and if it wasn't for Fawcett's activities, we wouldn't have these two books. Now we skip forward. Fawcett disappears in 1925 looking for El Dorado. That's neither here nor there, nor anywhere, because it's El Dorado. But George Lucas is going on, and he's thinking, I should make a story. And he pitches this idea of bringing back the pulpy adventure stories. And for inspiration for his main character, he takes the lead role from King Solomon's Mines and from The Lost World. And he combines them, and that's where we get Indiana Jones. So if we get a flow chart, we've got Fawcett here, who's friends with Haggard and Doyle. Doyle makes The Lost World. Haggard makes King Solomon's Mines, and then they come together when you get Indiana Jones. So basically, evolutionarily speaking, Fawcett is Indiana Jones. Incidentally, there's a book by David Grant. It's in a bookstore. They showed up at the start of this term, and I was fantastically excited for it. It's called Lost City of Z. It's by David Grant. He was a journalist for the New York Times. And he investigated what happened to Fawcett. And it is fascinating. I could go on so much longer about this guy. But it's very sad, too, because Fawcett, World War I was not good for him. He probably had shell shock, and he got majorly involved in the occult and such because he was trying to get in touch with all the friends that got blown up. And he thought El Dorado was some kind of spiritual paradise where there was going to be a bunch of gurus, and he was going to be able to find his friends. And I just think it's kind of a tragic story when you really think about it, because this guy looked for so much and never found it. But ultimately, what it boils down to is that if it wasn't for Fawcett and the life he lived, we wouldn't have the adventure stories as we knew it. And I think that's kind of important. He might not have found a golden city, but he gave us things to read that inspire us a little bit. So, thank you.